Hi students. Today we're going to talk about using a SQLite database to work with our Python programming. So this is pretty exciting. We've gone through different data structures such as lists and dictionaries, and this is the first time we're actually going to be using SQL and kind of putting all of the concepts that you've learned thus far into a persistent data storage that can be retrieved and updated and used to create reports and um, really become a useful addition to the basis of a Python uh, programming database application. So one of the things that I mentioned in class is the idea of creating a CRUD, C-R-U-D, and this is a concept that every database application uses, and CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. These are the four operations that you're going to want to be able to do with your data. So create would mean creating new records of data. Read would be pulling those records, querying them, so that you could use them for a report or filter the data based on a particular combination, like you want to see all of the students from your student system that live in the state of California, something like that. And then U is for update, and update is when you need to make a change to data that exists in a current record. Let's say somebody needs to update their address or something like that. You want to be able to make that change. And then delete, while I don't necessarily like deleting any data ever in a database system, I do believe in using some sort of status to control whether that data is available. So a lot of times I like to create a status that inactivates or activates data. You can kind of think of it like publishing data or unpublishing data. But I don't like to delete data entirely because there's a historical aspect of data that should be maintained in most cases. Okay, so for this activity, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to take a look at the starting code for a simple SQLite database. Now, SQLite is a very lightweight system that allows us to actually have the database stored as a .db file. Now, when we open it up, you're not going to be able to see what any of this means, but know that this translates into the proper programming tool that will interpret this data. So this is not necessarily anything useful to you at the moment in terms of looking at like a .csv would be, but know that that file is being updated and will be able to be interpreted in a proper SQLite viewer tool. Okay, so let's run this file here. So I'm going to run this now. Here's what's happening. Number one, the first thing you have to do is you have to import the SQLite 3 database module. And again, this is a standard module in Python, so you don't need to do anything other than run that import statement. The next thing is I've got a little print my program title that I require on every single one of my programs. The next thing you want to do is you want to connect to that database. So on line 6 here, I am running a command called connect. I am passing it the file name of my DB, which exists here in my REPL, and I'm assigning that connection a variable called conn, C-O-N-N. Okay, then in line 9, I'm basically creating a cursor that will connect to the database and allow me to run these operations with that particular database. Okay, so line 12, I'm first, what I'm going to do every time I run this program, I want to make sure that I start this program with a defined table for my user. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to drop the table. So this is a SQL command, if exists. So I'm going to start with a new table for the purpose of this activity. If you are doing this for your homework assignment, you probably don't want to drop the table. You don't want to create a brand new table. You want to continue using the table that you've been using and have persistent data. So this would be the line that we're going to want to comment out or remove entirely from our program. But for the purpose of this exercise, I wanted everybody to start with a fresh table and then be able to manipulate that. Okay, so after that, I'm going to execute another SQL statement, which is a create table statement. And what you'll see here is that I have create table. The name of the table is going to be user. And within that, there's going to be 3 fields. One is first name, which is a text field, which is basically like a, anything that's going to hold strings. And then a last name field, also text, and then email text. So there's going to be these 3 fields, and there is automatically going to be a primary key created and referenced as a row ID. You do not need to explicitly add that row ID. It will be added automatically. Okay, after that, we're going to add some records of data just to put some fake data in here. And I like to use my superheroes whenever I do data to make it interesting for me. Iron Man is always there, willing to help. So I'm going to run 2 different insert statements. Again, this is also SQL. So I'm inserting into the name of the table, user, and then values. These are going to be the values that I am inserting, and note that I am inserting them in the same order that they exist in the table. So I've got a first name, a last name, and email. Here I have first name, a last name, and email. You need to make sure that you specify using these little escape slashes will escape the double quote, because this statement would end here before Tony because it's the matching double quote of the first one. So that slash is going to basically say ignore this. This is part of what we want to insert into the the database table. So that's why you see slashes between every single one, except the one at the end. There is no slash because that one is the one that actually responds, is the closing quote for the actual execute statement. Okay, so just make sure that your syntax is correct on that, or you're going to get an error adding these into the table. So I've got 2. I'm just going to run that execute statement. And then on line 22, I am basically doing the read, or the SQL query that is going to provide me with the data returned from my SQLite database. So this is a simple query. Select row ID, first name, last name, and email from user. There's no filter here. So I'm going to get every single row of data in here. And then that's going to output to the screen. And I'm going to store the results of the cursor to a new variable called users. Okay, and this is going to be a list. So now I'm going to loop through that list. This should look pretty familiar to you. So for this user, that's what I'm calling every single row of data in the list, in users, the name of my variable. Then I'm going to print out the index, the first index 0, for this particular row, and the next one, etc., all the way to represent the 4 fields. When you go to exit your database, you need to commit your updates. So if I didn't have this commit on here, I wouldn't be able to save the data for the next time that I want to come in. And then you should always close your database connection. And let's see what this actually looks like in here. Okay, so the only output that we really have here is the output for the 2 records of data that I currently have in here. And what we want to do as part of this assignment is, let's take a look at the assignment. So the first step is to add a program title. That's actually already there. And just make sure you consider the user experience throughout the output of our program. The next thing we're going to do is modify the user table and create columns to store the following information. So we already have first name and last name and email. We need to add phone number, street address, city, state, and zip code. Okay, so let's go back to our code. And basically what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to update our create table statement. So we've got email. Now, when you name these fields, you want to make sure there's no spaces in the name of the field. So if you need to have something, you can either, you notice I put in underscores, and that seems to work well for me. Okay, so let me just double check what that is again. Phone number, street address, city, state, zip code. Okay, so I'm going to put in something phone. Let me get rid of this completely. Phone, and these are all going to be text. Okay, you might well, let me just say street address. You might wonder why I wouldn't save like the zip code as an integer, but a zip code is, first of all, in some countries zip codes have letters in them, so that's a valid reason. And in other ways, I only store things in a database as an integer if I need to do something that requires math with them. So something like a street address or a zip code, I always store as just a regular string. Okay, so here we go. First name, text, last name, text, email, text, phone, text, street address, text, city, text, state, text, zip code, text. So I think that looks good. Now, just out of curiosity, because I'm a curious person when I'm coding, I want to run this program and see if this creates any errors with the fact that I'm actually not putting all of that data in here yet. As you can see, I haven't changed any of the insert statements. So I just want to run this and see what happens. So to give you an understanding of what might happen if you run into something. So here it says insert into values, and then operational error, table user has 8 columns, but only 3 values were supplied. So that should tell us that we need to make sure that whatever we have in our table definition, we also have in our insert statement. So let's make sure that we are putting everybody in here correctly. Okay, we'll go ahead and modify these statements. So again, you're going to want to be working with this internal parentheses, and we're just going to follow the same syntax where we're going to start off with a comma and a space, and we're going to make that slash, and I'm actually going to just do both slashes here so that I can put my data in between here. Does that look right? Slash, quotation, data, slash, quotation. So I'm just going to copy this because this is the format I'm going to need for the how many fields did I add? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 additional fields. So I'm just going to, that was 1. This will be 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing down here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now I've got everything set up. So now I can actually put the data in here. Okay, so this is a phone number. So again, a phone number, I'm not going to store as an integer because I'm not doing math with it. So I'm going to just make up some fake phone number. And then I have a street address. I like to do my main street. Whoops. And then I have city. So let's say, I think Tony Stark lives in Malibu. And then I'm going to put California. And I don't know, we'll just do 98581. I know that's, oh, 9, wait, what was it? 9, what was the TV show? I can't remember that at this point. I know 210, I don't know. All right, showing my age here. All right, so let me do the same thing then for the next one. We'll do slightly different phone number. And we will say Michigan Avenue. Let's just say Boston, Massachusetts. I have no idea what the zip codes are, but there we go. Okay, so I have updated these 2 records of data. So now I'm going to run this again. Notice I have not updated the query, but I want to see what happens. I'm going to clear my output. I'm going to click run. Okay, so now I'm able to run it, and we don't notice anything different because we haven't changed the cursor execute statement to show us all the data. So if I want to add more data here, I can do phone, and then let's just say state, phone and state. I don't need to have everything else. Okay, so let me run it again. So I run it again. Oh, I updated the execute statement, but I did not update the print statement. So I need to do the same thing down here. So this user 4, because that's going to be the next item in the list, and this user 5. All right, here we go. So here we have our new data. Okay, so we know that we have successfully completed modify the user table and create the columns. All right, populate your table with at least 5 records of unique data. So I have updated the 2 that were already there. So I'm going to let you add the 5 that you would like. And I recommend following a theme, favorite television show, or, you know, particular, maybe a video game you like, or your own family members, whatever you want to do here. Okay, now the next step is to create a menu for the user to interact with our data. Okay, so as it stands right now, we're just running through this program, right? We don't really have anything going on to create this menu system. So I'm going to stop this video right here, and then I will start a new video that will walk us through creating the menu system. Okay, so thanks a lot, and watch the follow-up video. Thank you.